Hi everybody, Jeff Kelly here. Today I just wanted to do a video on Harry Sanford and his total career in guns, the different venues, the different guns, what happened to the venues, and more or less trace every aspect of his career with firearms, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there as far as businesses being purchased or taking over or going into other people running them. And I just wanted to set the record straight on the whole career of Harry Sanford and what he did for the firearm industry. But first, I'd like to give my usual thank you to my friend Bruce Stark, the author of Automag, The Pasadena Days, for without his help, I wouldn't have been able to do any of these videos, and I will also direct you down below to his email address if you would like to get a copy of the Automag book that he's written, which is excellent if you like Automags. Harry's first job was in the firearm business was in 1954 to 1956, and he worked for Golden State Arms on West Green Street in Pasadena, which was the premier gun shop in Pasadena at that time. And here's a picture of the Golden State Arms Corporation gun shop back in 1954. It was quite a building and quite a place. Harry was 24 years old when he started at Golden State, and he was living on Leilani Way in northern Altadena, and you can see that by the red star underneath the address on the map there. He worked there for 2 years, and then he struck out on his own, but here's a picture of the place on Leilani Way that he was living at until 1961. In February of 1958, Harry left the Golden State Arms, his first job in the firearms industry, and started his own place at 2620 East Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, called the Pasadena Firearms and Tackle Company. 8 months after Harry opened his gun shop in Pasadena, 4 men came in and held him up and made him lay down on the ground. And this article was printed in a San Francisco paper because a couple of the assailants were from San Carlos. And this other article was printed in the local Pasadena paper. So it looks like they got some Lugers and Mausers, and ultimately they were caught. But here Harry's still living on Leilani Way. Well, Harry was obviously very successful at this gun business, because in 1961 he moved to this address on Altapine in northern Altadena, which is at that time and right now is a very expensive neighborhood, and that's a very expensive house. So kudos to Harry. Also in 1961, Harry and this Douglas Cox filed a fictitious business name called the Sea Hunter Shop, which was domiciled at Harry's gun business on Colorado Boulevard. I guess it was to sell scuba gear or whatever, but that was done at that time. So in November of '64, Harry, I guess, received a little stolen property and was convicted of it. A couple of Marines gave him 17,000 rounds of ammunition, and so I guess even without the internet, you can't get away from your past. But he also lost his federal firearms license at that time too. So Bruce Stark was kind enough to send me what happened to get his license back, or I think that this whole history wouldn't have been there like it was. So it pays to know people in high places. I guess Harry was friends with H.L. Bill Richardson, who later became one of the founders of the Gun Owners of America organization and recently died. I think it was in 2015 or 17. But he got the law changed so Harry could get his FFL back. And thank you to Bruce for making me aware of that. But things were different back in those days. You could actually get things done. So thank you, Bill. So in April 1968, this is when things really start taking off for Harry's firearms career. He moved down to 2480 East Colorado, which was a bigger place, and that's where things started happening. You can see it there by the red star above it, which is the third gun shop that Harry has been with. And here is the gun store that Harry had at 2840 East Colorado, where the prototype for the 44 Automag was built. And this is where it was all kicked off right here. So after living in the same house on Alta Pine since 1961, Harry became very prosperous in his gun businesses and decided to move in 1969. And he moved to Arcadia on Highland Avenue, and here is the beautiful home that he bought up there, which today would probably be worth $3 million. To facilitate the production of the Automag that they had developed in the Pasadena gun shop, Harry leased this manufacturing building down on South Arroyo Parkway at 660. You can see where the red star is on the map there. And here's a picture of the building that he leased in 1970. And up in the right corner, of course, is a picture of the famous 44 Automag that Harry and the others developed in that facility. And on May 3rd, 1972, they were quickly evicted and went bankrupt because the business did not make a profit. So Harry, being one not to be stopped in business, immediately leased a building on McBean in El Monte, and here's a picture of it right here. The saga continues. Now, getting back to the purpose of this video, it is the guns that Harry came up with and also where they were manufactured. So you can't talk about where they were manufactured without mentioning Bob Babashiewicz' house in Rosemead, where he put together the North Hollywood guns, including the two-liners and also the regular North Hollywood guns, numbering about 1,000 guns. So that's why that house is included on this chart of where guns were manufactured. And Bob also made the famous Babashiewicz barrel pictured in the lower right-hand corner there, with no markings on it whatsoever. Okay, let's go back to El Monte now. I wanted to tell you where I got these addresses and dates. One of my resources was Gun Digest, and they have an address directory in the back. And the reason I have the James C. Thomas III building up there is because right after the bankruptcy, Harry and James C. Thomas used that address so they wouldn't get a lot of the pissed off bankrupt affected people who wanted their Automags to come down to El Monte and beg for their Automags down there and give them a lot of trouble. So they were using the Van Owen address for a couple of years after the bankruptcy. But nevertheless, they were manufacturing all the guns either at Bob Babashiewicz's house or here in the El Monte plant. Now let's take a look at what they did do in the El Monte plant. Harry put together 100 Pasadena guns in the Almonte plant because he had that many frames and parts available to him. Then they also made the TDE Automags. They made the 135 high standard Automags, which they were using the high standard address for Automags and Gun Digest. In that period of time, they made the Lee Juris Automags, where they used his address in New Mexico, the Kent Lamont Automags, and then also there was a transition period in 1975 where I believe that Harry wanted to start making guns on his own, exclusive of the Automags, and that's where he started Ordnance Manufacturing Corp., or OMC, and made a deal with James C. Thomas III to use the TDE name as a marketing arm for his OMC guns. And you can see the OMC backup there, which I've got some documentation on. Started in 1975, and then we will get into where the name Arcadia Machine and Tool came from next. Harry filed a DBA for Arcadia Machine and Tool in 1975 at 333 St. Joseph Street in Arcadia, and that's where that star is right there on the map. So this is what's there now at 333 East St. Joseph Street. There must have been a street that went through and they built an industrial park and chopped it off, but that's what's there now. But that's where the original Arcadia Machine and Tool DBA was filed on May 16, 1975. Now I also wanted to get this out of the way in the Harry Sanford saga. Where that red star is up there is 45 St. Joseph Street, and that's where Harry filed a DBA for the Old Reliable Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company. I don't know who was making them, but they got made. You can see a picture of one of them up there in the upper left or upper right hand corner. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because that was one of Harry's manufacturing businesses in the firearm industry. Okay, let's get back to Almonte. So we talked about the Automag and finished up with the OMC Automags marketed by TDE, and they were marketed and manufactured up until 1981. Those are the solid bolt B guns. The TDE OMC backup was from 1975 to 1977, and then Harry actually started using the name for his business of Arcadia Machine and Tool, although it was located in El Monte, and that's where that new backup came from, or was marketed with. He also was the first one to make stainless steel 1911s, and in '76 he made the 45 AMT government model. In '77 he did the long slide hardballer. In '78 he did the regular 1911 hardballer. He also had the Skipper from 1978 until 1980, and then he made a smaller version of the Skipper in stainless steel as well, called the Combat model. So there was a lot of different guns coming out of this Almonte facility. Here is some early documentation for the OMC backup. November 1975, the article came out in Guns and Ammo, and here's an ad for it with the TDE Marketing Corp. Also, they compared the OMC with the Automag to show you the size difference. And here's one of the first print ads for it in March of 1976. And then here's TDE Marketing's paperwork, and also the box for the OMC backup pistol. So in 1981, 82, thereabouts, it's off to Covina. You can see the Covina plant with the red star next to it. I think Harry wanted to break ties with TDE and El Monte and start fresh with a new freestanding plant for Arcadia machine and tool. And here's the building Harry leased at 536 North Vincent Avenue in Covina. With the name Arcadia Machine and Tool next to it in 1982. So here are the guns that came out of the Covina manufacturing plant under the AMT name. Up in the middle on the top, they finished up the last of the Automags. They made them under AMC Automag and changed the 180 to 280 and the 160 to 260. These were the C guns, and they were the last of the line. Then they also did the 35 guns in the last series, the LAST series, at this Covina plant. And then they started manufacturing, of course, the backup here under the AMT name in 22. They were still doing the Hardballer and the Hardballer long slide, the Combat, 45 Combat government model they were doing here, and the Skipper, the 40 caliber Skipper they were doing here as well. And I think that the date's a little wrong there on the Skipper for the 40 caliber, but they were doing it in 45. Then they also did the Baby Automag by Brian Maynard, invented that in 1985. And they made 1,000 of those between 85 and 86. And what got them in trouble, and I'll show you that a little later, was in 1984 they started making the AMT Lightning, which was a copy of the Ruger Standard and the Ruger Mark I and Mark II. And then they also started making the AMT Lightning with a folding stock. You can see that down at the bottom left, which was a total knockoff of the 1022 that Ruger makes. But then they also started a rifle line with the 22 Magnum there, the AMT Hunter rifle. And so those were the guns that came out of the Covina plant. I just wanted to add, they came up with the Automag 2 in the Covina plant. And here's May 1987 Guns and Ammo with the prototype model. You can tell by the grips on it. But this was a very important innovation for 22 Magnum pistols. And then here is continued marketing material for the Automag 2, but also that Lightning knockoff of the Ruger, and this is what got them in big trouble because Ruger sued them, and when we go to our next stop, that will be the reason why. So Harry leaves Covina for the Santos Dios address in Irwindale, and the reason for that was to flee the pending lawsuits from Ruger and start a new corporation under a different name, which you can see here is Irwindale Arms Incorporated. Now here's one of the first guns that were manufactured under the IAI name, and that was the 30 caliber carbine developed by Larry Grossman. In the automatic. This was the second only 30 caliber carbine in an automatic pistol ever made. You can see in that Guns and Ammo, that was the Kimball, which was made back in the 50s, which didn't work too well. But this was March 89, and this was one of the first additions to the AIA company. Here's the advertising material. They also made a 10 millimeter, a 9 millimeter Magnum in this same configuration under the .30 carbine. So you had those two configurations going. Brand new gun, stainless steel, under the AIA name. Then you had the Javalina, developed in 1989. Here's the Handguns article in October of '89, and this was a 10 millimeter long slide and also a 5-inch slide. Javalina, I believe, means hog hunter in Spanish, and it was joining the 10 millimeter craze like the Delta Elite and the Bren 10, and I think Smith & Wesson was starting to make their 10.06s and 10.26s at that time. So Harry was really cutting edge as far as these guns go, and it was also the first stainless steel 10 millimeter. IAI also came out with a 45 Win Mag and 10 millimeter Magnum configuration in this style of handgun in 1990. Here's the advertisement for it, and those are the first two high-powered handguns that could be used for hunting or silhouette. Now, when they advertised under the name of AIA, you can see there in this ad that they wanted the connection to AMT, so they connected it back with formerly AMT in the ad. Now, in this ad, this is January of 1990. You can see that you've got a formerly of AMT under the .30 caliber carbine, but you also have the Automag 2 still AMT and the backup still AMT. So they were really manufacturing under both names under the same roof until the Ruger lawsuit was settled. Now, this ad is very important because, as you can see, the Automag 3 is now the AMT Automag 3, and this ad's dated November of 1991. So the lawsuit had been settled with Ruger. AIA name had been dropped. Now they were back to manufacturing guns under the Arcadia Machine and Tool name. So this is a very important date going forward for the Irwindale plant. Now here's the Guns and Ammo, September of 1991, and this is also important because this is an AMT Automag 4 on the cover, and they were making this under the IAI name before, and now they're making it under the AMT name once again. So this is kind of the going forward, the point where AMT starts to thrive again. So I wanted to run you through the IAI stuff before we got into the rest of the AMT stuff. So now let's run through the AMT guns. As you can see, to recap, the Santos Dios Irwindale address was from 1988 to 1989. And in '88, Harry incorporated Irwindale Arms to get out from under the lawsuit. Then back in '91, he went back under the name of AMT, or Arcadia Machine and Tool. So let's go through the guns here. We have the AMT Automag, one word, 2 in 22 Magnum from 1988 to 1999. We've got the Automag 3, the AIA and .30 carbine and 9mm Magnum from 89 to 91. And we have the AIA 4, Automag 4 in 45 Win Mag and 10mm Magnum from 1990 to 1991, and They also made the On Duty in 40 caliber and 9mm in 1991 under the AIA name, which later switched to AMT from 93 to 94. They made the Javalina under the AIA name from 89 to 91 in the long slide, and also made it in the 5-inch slide from 89 to 91 in 10mm. They also made the Skipper for 1 year in 40 caliber under the AIA name in 1992. They continue to make the Hardballer under AIA in 45 caliber in 1991, and then they flipped it back to AMT. In 1994, they made the AMT Automag 5 in 50 AE with a ported barrel. And then from 89 to 92 in this Santos Dios location, they were continuing to make the AMT Lightning, the AMT Backup 2 in 92, the AMT Backup Double Action in 1995, and then they also made a AIA Backup in 380 from 1989 to 1991. They also had a line of rifles. As you can see, they made the Challenge Edition Elite in 22 long rifle in 1995. They made the AMT Small Game Hunter in 22 and 91, the Fly Swatter in 22 and 96, the AMT Magnum Hunter in 22 Magnum, 22 Magnum Hunter, the AMT Challenge Edition Elite 3 and 22 long rifle, 1995. So, you know, a lot of different guns came out of this Irwindale plant. A lot of different guns came out of the Covina plant. There was uninterrupted hardballer manufacturing. There was uninterrupted Automag 2 manufacturing, backup manufacturing, all the way through from the mid-70s, all the way through until the middle 90s. And they were just in different plants, but Harry had ownership of each different plant, and he had ownership of all the guns, so just the names were changed to protect the innocent on this stuff. So here's just some more ad copy I thought you might find interesting with the Irwindale address on it and the new double action backup. And sadly, Harry passed away on April 28, 1996 of a heart attack at age 65. Here's his obituary that was published in the LA Times. And H.L. Richardson, who we mentioned before, who is now the head of the Gun Owners of America, or not now, but up until he died in 2015, I believe, he gave Harry's eulogy. So it was a great loss. Harry had a great career in gun manufacturing, and I hope that this was helpful on seeing how many guns Harry actually was involved in, and that there wasn't any change of ownership through his whole lifetime or career that people seem to want to believe just because there was a name change. So kudos to Harry, and I'm just going to go to one last address before the empire is gone. So let's talk about that. And this is the last address, 5463 Diaz Street in Irwindale. And this was the only time that AMT was ever sold, and that was in 1998 to Galena Industries. So if you have a Galena gun, this is where it was put together. And after 98, they moved the operation back to South Dakota, Sturgis, South Dakota, and then in 2001 they sold it off to Crusader guns, and then they were bought by High Standard. But Harry held it up until the end. This was the only change of ownership right here. So I have the timeline here laid out, and everything that happened during Harry's career. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you some clarity on what guns were made where and how many guns were made, and to give Harry all the credit, because he was the guy who held it all together from the 50s all the way up until the middle 90s when he passed away. So kudos to Harry. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like it and share it, and I will see you on the next go-round.